right, welcome back to another episode of D2D Success Stories. Here today with my good friend Dave Allred. Welcome, dude.
Thanks, man. Great to be here.
Absolutely. So let me kind of intro you a little bit. You'll probably have to remind me some details, and then we'll go back to the beginning. So what's your official title at Axia? Managing partner?
CEO, fund management.
CEO, fund management at Axia Partners. Great big old real estate fund here in Utah. They do a bunch of stuff. I'm in deep on that one. But prior to that, did you say 17-year door-to-door career?
Yes.
Doing a whole bunch of alarms and some solar towards the end. Can you give us those? You told me the numbers earlier, number of teams and whatever.
Sure. Yeah. So it was going to be just a 4-month season out in Chicago, right? But it turned into 17-year leadership career. I had the privilege of managing 121 sales teams across the country in 41 states.
Love it. That's awesome, dude. And you know, your ending title at both of those places was like VP or regional or something like that, right? So anyway, Dave's an OG. So, you know, with that kind of as the primer, let's go back to the beginning. Give us just a minute or two about where you grew up and, you know, maybe high school, college, that type of stuff.
You got it, man. So I grew up in a small town here in Utah, central Utah. It's called Manti, Utah. Population was about 2,000 people, really small, right?
Yeah.
Moved into a little home in Ephraim. So,
dude, I've listened to your podcast like 4 times before, and I've never heard that part.
Yeah, I used to not really talk about it, but I just figured, hey, you might as well, you know, they say your message.
Yeah.
So you might as well just, you know, share it if it's of value. And so, but yeah, so, you know, ran away, lived in this little tiny home, paying $120 a month in rent. Literally the roof's caving in, and we're just living on ramen noodles and fast food. It was a grind, man. Working a night shift, you know, making $6-7 an hour.
Yeah, doing what, like in a restaurant or something?
I wish. It was actually manufacturing garbage cans and columns, like fiberglass columns. Okay. So all night on a big winding machine with fiberglass and resin. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was the only job I could get at the time.
You were probably like barely old enough for it to not be child labor or something.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it probably was like, you probably weren't supposed to be doing night shift.
I mean, I don't really know. I was just grateful to have the job there, man.
No, yeah, I'm down with it. I'm saying the employers. That's funny, though.
Yeah. So doing that for a couple of years, and then I was going to college at Snow College.
Okay.
And, you know, but backing up a little bit, when I was, you know, a teenager, I always knew I wanted more than this, and I wanted something. You know, it was a tough childhood, but I always had this burning desire that, hey, I'm gonna figure out, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get out of this, and to be able to reset the standard and really change everything, change the game for my future quality of life, my future family, my future generations, my posterity. And I don't know where I got that from exactly, but you know, there's a quote from Jerry Rice that I've always loved, and I've kind of lived my life by it. And you know, it's that. Well, there's a couple different quotes that I really, really like, but you know, if you can do the things that other people won't do today, you can have the life others can't. And I've always loved that, man. So, you know, by doing the things that others won't today, you can therefore live the life that others can't have. It's delayed gratification, you know, it's the law of the harvest, and it's really just about doing hard things. And I look back at my life, and a lot of the times, you know, I think one of the keys to success has been just do hard things. If something scares you, do it. That's a motto of my life, is if something scares you, just do it.
Well, it's kind of a slept-on concept these days, because the way I hear a lot of kids frame it these days to kind of like justify not working as hard is they'll be like, oh, well, work to live, not live to work, or collect experiences, not things, or whatever. And like, I kind of, you know, on its face, I agree with all those things, but there's also this concept of like, even within that, you know, let's say you want to have experiences. Well, if you can delay gratification for a couple years, maybe in a 40-year span, you have much better experiences. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we could talk an entire podcast on that. Like, I live my life around experiences. I feel like at the end of the day, when you look back at life, there's going to be 3 things that are really important, at least for me, and that is experiences, memories, and relationships. Like, 'cause I think a lot about like purpose and what I really want in my life, to make sure I live with no regrets, and that's my belief. And so But I do believe that, you know, a lot of times, especially millennials now, young people, it's all about that instant dopamine hit. It's about that instant gratification.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've got 4 kids, ages 9 through 18 now. And one of my primary goals is to teach them about the power of delayed gratification. It's a lost art form. And I think summer sales did a great job of teaching me that, man. My first summer, I went out, you know, my first week I sold 1 account, and it ended up being a sub 600 credit score I shouldn't have installed. I didn't know better. So I got $200. Later on, the technician had to come back and pull out the system, and they charged me back the $200. My first week, my first month, I sold 7 accounts, which is pretty shitty, man. Honestly, like that. Yeah. And I'd always been pretty successful, whatever I put my mind to. And so that was really, really hard for me, man. Midway through the summer, I was still struggling. I can't remember the exact numbers. It was, you know, maybe 30, 40 accounts. And back then I was making $295 a sell, right? and half the team had quit by the midsummer. And then one of the guys on the team actually ended up getting shot in the leg. Somebody sniped him with a .22 caliber while he was out knocking. This is Chicago, right? Chicago, so I mean, it kind of makes sense. But by the end of the summer, 80% of the team had quit. But I was able to stick through it and just grind through it. And I realized this was going to be hard, but I knew I was going to learn a lot from that, right? The grit, the tenacity, the relentless pursuit of the goal, you know, not quitting, you know, just not tucking your tail between your legs and going home. I knew it was going to set a precedence for the rest of my professional career, because that was my first career, right? If you will, my first job, like real job.
Adult job,
Yeah, you know, as an adult. And so, but I'm so grateful now looking back at that, because I was able to end the summer at 121 accounts, which I earned $31,000, which for me, even to this day, that's the most valuable or meaningful money I've ever made in my life.
Right.
It's more than my parents ever made. It was enough for me to be able to come back the next year and be a sales manager. You know, and I made $157,000.
It's like the first water bottle in a desert. You know?
It was incredible. Honestly, man, it changed the trajectory of my life. And if I would have quit and gone home, who knows where I would have been today. I mean, I remember as a kid, or as a teenager, thinking, hey, best case scenario in my life, like if I play all my cards right, I might be able to get to a point where I can make $100,000 in a year, right? Like that was like the very, very, I'd be like epitome of success for me, right? In that second year as a sales manager, I made $157,000. Came back the next year, and I was as a top first year sales manager. Next year as a regional manager, you know, made 250 something, and the next year 500 something.
And this is all like
from there.
Early 2000s money. So big money. I like what you're talking about like the instant dopamine hits, man, because quitting, you know, there's a little bit of a dopamine hit of like, I don't have to do the hard thing anymore, but it's probably nothing compared to driving home from Chicago at the end of the summer, having done it for real, you know? So it's like,
but there's a lot of examples on that, man. Honestly, like look back in my life, you know, there's been so many examples of that exact same kind of concept, that principle, right? So door sales was part of it. You know, going on a mission was definitely that for me, man, as well. Like hard. It was so hard going to Peru. We both served in the same country, in Peru.
Yes.
And dude, that was so challenging. I didn't know Spanish. I didn't know the food. I thought it was gonna be Mexican food for some reason. I love Mexican food.
Right.
We get out there's no Mexican food at all. It's
when you're just a boy from the country, everything south of the border is Mexico.
That's right.
You go down there, like, where are the beans?
Had never traveled. You know, that's my first flight, I think, in my life was my flight to Peru. You know, and fast forward today, I've been to 62 countries, and you know, I love travel. And again, I had that ability because of the door sales experience and that kind of that foundation that I was able to kind of build off of in the future. But some examples, man, these struggles. I mean, you know, going through, I mean, even, you know, getting married, it's a big, scary proposition to begin with. You know, being a father, you know, my partners and I brought Topgolf into Utah County. That was a big project. And frankly, it was scary, man. Like, I didn't know exactly how we were going to do that. But sometimes I feel like the best way of approaching those situations is just take a big bite. Even if you don't know how to chew on it yet, take the big bite and then figure out how to chew on it. I mean, on that Topgolf deal, I learned more about commercial development than I would have having gone to go get a master's degree in commercial development by just going and doing it. Launching Axia Partners. I mean, that was a big, you know, transitioning from Vivint Smart Home to Vivint Solar. Like, that was also a big one. In 2017, deciding to quit or to retire from a 17-year leadership career and go full-time into real estate, dude, that was really a hard decision. It was like cutting the umbilical cord, right? That's all I had known, 17 years in my adult career. And then to walk away from all of that and go full-time into real estate. So anyway, my point there was just like sometimes I feel like in life, it's just whatever kind of scares you, you should do it.
And it's weird. Like I relate to this big time. I always think about having my first kid because I didn't grow up with younger siblings. I had never hardly been around babies. So it's not that I didn't want to be a dad. It's just that I had no concept of it. Like I couldn't imagine what that would be like at all. Zero, nothing that I could relate to.
Yeah.
But you feel like it's a good thing and feel like you're supposed to. So it's just like, boom, I'm doing this, I guess. Sounds like.
Yeah, of all the things I just rattled off there, I mean, by far the scariest, I agree, has been, being a father. The concept of being a father, right? Especially when maybe you grew up in a situation where it was, it wasn't ideal. But I will say this, man, Levi, out of all the things that, we talk about, like accomplishments or whatever else, my greatest pride by far is my family, my kids. Like nothing brings as much fulfillment as having these amazing kids. We just got back from Mexico. We were down in Cancun in the last 9 days. Like the most incredible family time, just hanging out, quality of life, just talking about, anyway, family. And by the way, kind of backing up a little bit, for me, that's always been a core motivator for me has been, well, backing up quite a bit. So doing door-to-door sales, I feel grateful for having realized early on in my career that a core motivator for Dave Allred is freedom.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to have a ton of freedom in my life to be doing what I want to do with the people I want to be doing it with when I want to be doing it. And that's been a real driver for me. And then as I, got married and started a family, that pivoted even more so to making sure I can be a good provider and protector for my family. And I think having that identified and not just, saying that, but actually like going deep into what's that look like? What exactly does that mean? And the more you can envision that in your mind and really see it and feel it, that then it becomes so much more real as a motivator for you. They say the bigger the why, the easier the how.
Yeah.
And so for me, that focus on family and freedom has really been, I would say, probably the catalyst that's been able to help keep me motivated to go through those really hard chapters in life.
Yeah. I was going to ask you earlier too, and this kind of ties together, like you talking about growing up and then kind of becoming an adult. And I think the way you said it was just I always wanted something different. It's like by different, do you mean like wanted to leave Manti or just wanted a happier family or, just on like a human need level? Like I could see as a kid you're stuck with your family, so therefore you want the freedom. It's just like, I don't ever want to be like stuck like this again. Like kind of maybe give us a little analysis there.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, it was wanting just more of everything. I mean, when I ran away that first night, I remember I slept in the back. I broke into a semi truck because there's like those beds in the back row, right?
So this is a hardcore runaway. I feel like sometimes people say runaway and what they mean is just like I moved out. No, this is hardcore.
Yeah, this is a little bit different. After sleeping, anyway. So so for me, what that, being committed to resetting the standard and wanting more, it was to resolve all this, the trauma, to be able to reset the standard for happiness for my family, the definition of success for our family.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to open up the doors of education for my kids, which I didn't really have that opportunity. I wanted to be able to have a great family with a great family culture of love and support. I wanted to be able to have a really close, loving relationship with my children, and I wanted to win. I wanted to do something big. I wanted to make an impact. I wanted to be able to really live life on my own terms.
Yeah.
And feel like I had autonomy, and that I could live life the way that I feel like was my purpose, and not be controlled or influenced by somebody else or by outside circumstances. And I think I just wanted to have some, what's the right word? Maybe it's not freedom, independence.
Yeah.
I think I wanted to have independence to be able to live my life on my terms.
Right. Yeah, it's powerful, man. It's powerful. Thanks for sharing that. So let's get back into the little bit of the play-by-play of the story. So you stick it out your first year, like you said. come home, the conquering champion? Are you just like what's the vibes when you come home? Are you like, this is what I do for work now, or how much certainty about the future do you have? Are you definitely recruiting a team for the next year?
So first off, I get home and I get my back end check, year end check, commission check, right?
Yeah.
And I go out and I buy a Isuzu Rodeo with the chrome wheel package on it. And that's what I thought. I was mobbing around Snow College, right?
Yeah.
In my newest Isuzu Rodeo. Honestly, I felt like that. I was a man. I was so proud of this.
Yeah.
Isuzu Rodeo. If you guys know what that is, it's like an SUV, small SUV.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't even know what that is, but it sounds like some type of Kid Rock, Dukes of Hazzard stuff.
Bro, it was badass.
Yeah.
No, it really wasn't. Yeah, so I mean, I got that, and then I qualified to. I skipped this part, but midsummer in Chicago, my first summer, one of the VPs or regional managers came out and he gave a little presentation about if you sold 100 accounts, funded 100 accounts, then you could qualify to be a sales manager the next year. And I'm so grateful for that little speech, because that's really what kind of flipped the switch for me when I realized, okay, I could come back next year and actually build a team. I could be a leader. I could impact other people. I can do something a lot bigger than just myself here, and actually a much larger earning opportunity. And so when I mentioned I sold 121 funded accounts by the end of the summer, July and August, especially August, I think August was almost 60 accounts. And so it went really, really, really well at the end.
Yeah.
But the motivation, a lot of that came from the vision that was shared with me, even though, at that point, 50 to 80% of the team had already quit, right? At that point in the summertime. The motivation was like, hey, I can be a leader. And that really fired me up. And so for anybody that's listening that's a sales manager or a sales leader or an aspiring sales leader, I feel like casting vision is one of the most important attributes of a great leader. And when I look back in my career, my favorite leaders that I've loved working with and where I feel like loyalty and like true value has been created, it's those people. And I challenge you guys to think about that. Like in your life right now, if you think back on who the greatest leaders have been, my guess is it's going to be the people that you feel believed in you and helped to create vision of what your potential is and where that potential could go. And I feel like that's one of the most underutilized, I want to say skill, that skill set. It's a great skill of a leader.
Leadership.
I watched Todd Peterson at Vivint. I mean, that guy was just always talking about the vision of what we're going to do, where we're headed to, and how we're going to get there, and how you're a part of this vision and how you fit into that vision.
Well, it's a beautiful thing about our industry because, generally speaking, most companies in our industry are trying to scale up. So I just say this because, like, there's a lot of businesses where they can't even offer you that seat at the table because the table's full, right? Here, there's perpetually a seat at the table. You just have to take it, And yeah, the guys above you have to help you see that there is this seat. Here's what you got to do. Here's how you fill it. So, by the way, I just want to mention, as you were telling that, I kind of imagined like most of the guys have gone home, and that's when you have your month where you ball out the hardest. I bet that took some grit, because I'm just imagining that like that morning meeting was kind of a ghost town, a little bit of a downer maybe. So anyway, just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, it was definitely a different vibe.
Yeah, you have
at
like
the end.
Freaking 4 dudes doing a little meeting. 80% everybody's gone home. It's like, go sell, and that's when you're balling out. So anyway, that's cool. Yes, I mean, like, how do you recruit your team?
Oh yeah, so I was planning on being a manager the next year. So I came back, and the idea of recruiting was foreign to me. I'd never tried to recruit anybody.
Yeah.
And but what I've learned, kind of in hindsight, is selling, being a great salesperson, that's addition. Being a great recruiter, it's multiplication.
Yes.
Right. And that's why the earning opportunity goes up so much, because you're creating so much more value for the organization, right? It's not just about you now; it's about it's multiplication. And so, I didn't really know how to do it necessarily per se, but just started going through, my college dorm apartment, dorm mates.
Yeah.
Call it. Sorry guys, it's been a long time ago, but my dorm mates, and then I just started talking to everybody about it. And it's pretty easy when I'm like, hey, I had a success story last year, and this is how much I made, and this is what we're gonna go do this year. And I mean, it's a grind still for sure. But
Here's what I did. I'm a normal guy. I can show you how to do it too. Basically, right?
oh, and by the way, we checked out my newest Susie rodeo.
Yeah.
But yeah, just being really, this is what we're doing. It's going to be hard, and this is where it's at. I remember some of the keys for me. I feel like we're always making sure that you don't, never sugarcoat the fact that it's really hard.
Yeah.
I think the more you can actually tell somebody, hey, this is not for everybody. This is a hard job, and these are the challenges, and it's very mental, and don't sugarcoat any of that. What that does is it weeds out those that aren't qualified for it. But I found the very best guys, they actually resonate with that. It's almost attractive. It's okay. This is gonna be challenging. It's gonna be hard. Okay. Like anybody that's played competitive sports, like you don't get on the team easily. You gotta go out and.
It's like the hero's journey. It's like they're, we're not going to a freaking bouncy house party. This is a crusade.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, A players want to play with other A players, right? And so, I think that's a key to success there. The other part was, one thing that I did, which I didn't know how important this was at the time. I won't call it luck, but I ended up hiring 3 guys on my team that were really, really sharp guys, and I basically made them assistant managers before they even really done it. They were just sharp, high caliber guys, right?
Yeah.
And so I made their compensation plans very much performance based, so based on their own personal sales as well as their recruited accounts. And so I had 3 guys who were working for me to help recruit my very first year. And I don't remember how I got that idea, but in hindsight, that was one of the X factors to go out and be. That year, we went to Denver, and we were the top first-year team in the entire company,
Nice.
and 3rd overall in the entire company.
Yeah.
And so it was a massively successful summer. One thing I didn't realize, though, was at the end of the summer, that pay scale, I was just shooting. I was throwing darts in the dark. I didn't know what I was doing with those numbers, right? We ended up doing so well that I had anticipated paying these guys maybe a couple $1,000s. At the end of the day, it was actually between $30,000 to $50,000 I had to pay out to each one of them.
On top of their commission.
On top, this is out of my own pocket, so out of my own back end,
You
right?
squeezed the margin pretty
Yeah,
hard.
and I'll be honest with you, that was one point in my life where you want to talk about business ethics. That's a hard. I mean, you're expecting to pay maybe $5,000,
You said it.
$10,000, and now it's $30,000 to $50,000 each.
Right.
That was a hard one, man, because they already made a ton of money. They were already stoked, right? And then you can always. There's always a wiggle room and interpretation on things, whatever else. But after just a lot of internal, hey, what's the right thing to do here? Ended up paying the full amounts out to those 3 guys, and then and the next year, all 3 of those individuals came back with me as sales managers. Now I'm a regional manager, right? And those guys dominated. 2 of them were the top 2 teams in the company.
Yeah.
And so it's just a really interesting kind of lesson on making sure you put your people first. Always make sure you pay your people.
Yeah.
Do the right thing.
Because you could have squeezed $40,000 out of that, but then you don't have the 3 teams the next year.
Yeah, and I frankly, I probably could have squeezed half of that and still even gotten them back because whatever. But it wouldn't have been the right feel. It wouldn't have been the right and the culture, right? And hopefully they saw that and they treat their people that way, and that reciprocates that ripple effect, right, in business. So anyway, I didn't mean to brag. I just that was an important thing for.
I've gone through that a few times where you say something and then you have to follow through on it. It's really painful, and you're like, "Frick, I wish I wouldn't have said that." And, the part of this is, the one hand feeds the other, right? The other lesson you'll learn is stop committing to things unless you're not sure. The guys who work for me know it's really hard to get a promise out of me, because if I say the word promise, I'm going to freaking do it. But because of that, then I think hard before I talk, so.
But I got to say, Leo, that's one of the most admirable qualities, at least for me in business, is dependability. If somebody says they're going to do it, they're going to do it, right?
Right.
And people that have that reputation should take great pride in it.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the greatest things in business, man. In my business partners, even with my friends, I want dependable people. If they say they're going to do something, they're going to do it, right? The art of execution is incredibly valuable in business. One last thing to mention on that one, though, is what I am grateful for, a lesson learned on those compensation plans, was at least it was performance-based, right? So even though I had to pay out so much money, I earned a commission on those ones. So I was still in the green as well, and it was still a win-win situation.
Right.
So everything should always be very much performance-based. That's my take on anything in business, really.
Totally. Agreed. So, first summer's maybe a little more crucial, so we don't need to talk as long about all these other ones. But give us kind of, a synopsis on the next, say, 3 to 5 years as you scale from, manager over one team, manager over a few teams, to kind of like VP level type stuff?
You bet. So I had 4 teams, became a regional manager. The next year, had 8 teams. So those 3 individuals I already mentioned, they came back the next year. Eventually, 2 of those guys became regional managers as well, right? So again, ended up making millions of dollars versus squeezing them for 15, 20 grand maybe back on year 1.
Yeah.
And so long term, it worked out really, really well. Grew it to 4 teams, to 10, to 8 teams, then 10 teams. Had a really good year in 2008. Went to 18 teams. I believe we were the top region in the company that year. And that's about when Goldman Sachs came in as an equity partner with us. And that was really exciting because we then created what's called an LTIP, long-term incentive plan, where we could participate with our sales and our production in that. So it created a nice little equity pop there, which was fun. Continued to grow the region, became a vice president of sales. And then in 2012, Blackstone came in as an equity partner and replaced Goldman Sachs, which is awesome. So it actually created a liquidity event right there.
Yeah.
I won't talk about the exact numbers, but it was multiple, 7 figures. And what was, one thing that was kind of crazy at the time was we had an opportunity to roll that forward in the company as Class A shares, dollar for dollar next to Blackstone. And I decided to roll the majority of that forward, which, generally that's probably not the best idea, is to put that much right back into where you're earning your income from.
Yeah.
Most business books and would advise you should never put more than about 10% of your earnings back into the company where you earn the money from.
Yeah.
Right? Just from a risk perspective.
Well, that's if we're talking generic hypothetical company, but only you know what you know about the place you work.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate insider trading, right?
Right.
So rolled that forward into it, and luckily Vivint's done really well, and that ended up parlaying and compounding into about a 12x on that.
Just on the roll forward?
Just on the roll forward, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it worked out really well.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so so that was kind of the journey, and one of the challenges though is it just kind of becomes Groundhog Day after that many years of doing it, over and over and over and over. But what I really miss, I'll say this: I don't miss knocking doors. I don't think most guys ever do.
Right.
But I really do miss the camaraderie, being in the trenches with your boys, just grinding it out, going to battle every single day.
Yeah.
That camaraderie is really something special. So for those of you that are actively in that space, I'd say really lean into that, man, because that's something that I miss that. I miss that the most. And second thing that I miss is just the continual progression of development, because it is so competitive and because it keeps you on your toes. Like you've always got to be learning. You've always got to be at your very best. Every single morning when you go out to go knock, you've got to show up, right? And as a leader, it's even more so because now you have 20 sets of eyeballs looking at you every single morning for inspiration, for education, for mentorship. And so anyway, I would just challenge those listening that are in the industry, really lean into the leadership opportunity in front of you.
Yeah.
Because I believe, I was going to get my MBA. I was committed to that. I was actually at UVU, and I had 9 credits left to get my bachelor's in business. And the owners at Vivint came in like, hey man, we want to offer you a regional position. However, it's a full-time position, so you've got to, you can't be going to school. And I was like, I'm committed to this. I'm getting my MBA. And I ended up saying, hey, I'm going to take a pause on college and go full-time into this, which, look, in hindsight,
the old pause.
Yeah. And now, there's no chance. I see zero value in going back and doing that. I think that you learn so much more through the school of hard knocks.
Yeah.
I really do, man. It's
Agreed.
the rubber meets the road, right? And so instead of reading a textbook that's 8 years old, you read something and you go out that morning and you go implement it with your team. And so to me, it's such an incredible learning opportunity with ourselves. I actually want all of my children to go out and do at least one season, no matter how much abundance or whatever. I feel like the soft skills that you learn doing this, and it's the not just salesmanship, which is arguably the most important skill set you could have in life. I would actually argue that leadership is even more valuable.
Yeah.
Because how you show up as a father, as a husband in business is leadership really influences everything up or down. So anyway, salesmanship, leadership, tenacity, grind, the mindset, time management, how to recruit. There's so many soft skills that this industry teaches, and I'm so grateful for that, man, in my life. And it also translates a lot into business. I mean, even in the real estate space now, I run Axia Partners, and we have around $130 million of assets that we manage, and around 400 investors in our firm. And a lot of those same skills apply, right? Good communication skills, the ability to raise capital, the ability to manage a team, to manage assets, to create culture.
Fill your occupancies, negotiate the deals, I'm sure, as well. Dude, so I have a few questions kind of on this. One that I was thinking of is as you grow as a leader, and Vivint was a huge company all throughout this, but also getting bigger. There's all these different restructurings, and you're at a high level where there's, I don't know exactly how many, but there's 15, 20 guys who kind of feels like they run the company. How do you avoid like stepping on toes, and how do you play nice with all the other senior guys as that much water goes under the bridge, and avoid hurt feelings and things like that?
Oh, that's a good question.
By the way, this is one of those things that's never talked about on podcasts, because if there's any hint of like a negative story, people won't tell it. Not that you have to say names or anything, but
yeah, I haven't thought about that for a few years, so I'm just trying to think of a few things on that one. I do want to say one thing real quick, not quite to your question, but one thing that I want to share that I think is very valuable to your listener base is, I planted my flag at Vivint, and I never went anywhere else. Yeah. And I know in this industry there's so much, jumping around and shopping around, and I got signing bonus offers all the time, a new car or whatever, like pretty juicy offers, right? But I never jumped ship, and I really do believe that the grass is greener wherever you water it, wherever you fertilize it. And so, and not always. Sometimes a company might have some, really rocky foundation. There's some issues there, ethics, economics, whatever else. So sometimes you got to make that decision. But
sure,
if the company is, solid, and if you feel like you are treated fairly, I think a key is to plant your flag, stay there, ride or die, like just go and build something special. So many guys, they start off and they have some success, they build a little bit of a foundation, then they pop over to a different company, they really have to rebuild that foundation.
Well, and let me say too, to the mega cynics listening to this who are still disagreeing, what it probably sounds like, or what it may sound like sometimes, is that this is some kind of like loyalty to your people over money point. That's the point being made. But the truth is if you look back at the history of the industry, the people who've made the very most money are the ones who stayed. So this isn't an anti-money point we're making here. This is actually how you're going to go the furthest, right?
I agree. I also feel like that it's distilled into your leaders and your employees as well. If they see that you are firmly committed to this organization, they're going to naturally be a little more committed as well.
Right.
If they know that you're peeking over the fence and you're always pursuing whatever's shiny, right, then they're going to naturally feel like that's just kind of, normal business, and that's the culture in your organization.
Totally.
So,
totally.
Love it. Going back to your question on, how do you avoid like the bickering and the backbiting and like all that?
Yeah.
Honestly, man, I'll shoot you straight. That was one of the biggest challenges at our company, at Vivint, because at the beginning it was competing against every other alarm company, and we became this 800-pound gorilla, and we were the juggernaut. And frankly speaking, there was no competition. There was very little competition. So it ended up being very competitive inside the company. Yeah. And it was actually I'd say it was even like cannibalistic. Like it was very much. Yeah, you're recruiting
some kid. He's going with Vivint, but it's your region or the other dude's region.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So even got to a point where each region would have its own name, its own personal brand.
Yes.
Right? And so like their own guiding principles, their own, swag.
I always crack jokes about that, because I'll see the dudes on Instagram and I'll be like, I can't tell who this guy works for, because he's just branded his region. You can't find Vivint
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say a benefit of that though is it kept everybody on their toes.
Yeah.
Where it wasn't like a country club, boys club, where like, oh, you made it, so now you're regional, now you're a VP.
That's true.
It was very competitive, right?
Yeah.
And the scorecard's always right there.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the positive, but
Mm-hmm.
the negative would be just the how that affects culture
Mm-hmm.
and takes a little bit away from like the pride of being part of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And also it just makes it where every day is, it's recruiting against your friends. And that's actually one of the big turnoffs that kind of pushed me to leave that and go over to Vivint Solar, which is a new organization that was really in growth mode.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because it got pretty dysfunctional. And where every day you're, the other regionals and VPs are my friends.
Mm-hmm.
But we're literally sitting down with a recruit, lunch here, dinner here, and
Don't
trying
go with him,
to
go with me.
out-talk, our value proposition.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it was
that's
tough,
funny.
man.
Yeah.
It made the experience less enjoyable. I'll say it that way.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Before we started filming, you mentioned that Todd Peterson himself like drove down to Snow College and helped recruit you and some people in the beginning.
Yes.
I love that, by the way, and I've actually heard that about him a lot of times over the years, about him, even when they were giant, just doing one-to-one recruiting. Getting called in out of the stands to tag in on a recruit lunch or dinner or something like that. I don't know, man. Just talk about some of that trenchy guerrilla warfare stuff.
Yeah, I think Todd's one of the greatest recruiters to ever have been in the game. He is so truly passionate about recruiting.
Yeah.
I spent so many late nights, early mornings, 2 a.m. in his home with the recruits. We fly in, and the guy just goes all out.
Yeah.
And just he loves it, man. And it's one thing to do that for a year or two, or maybe 5 years, but to do that for 25 years, it's impressive.
Yeah.
Because he's so passionate about it, and because he leads by example, again, I think that's created that culture where, ABR always be recruiting.
Yeah, well, then the guys down the chain are like, shoot, man, if Todd cares this much, I got it. This is my literal job. I'm not the CEO. I got to do this like he does.
And it's great learning opportunities, right? The best way to teach is not to teach; it's to show.
To do, yeah.
I forgot the term there, but you know what I'm saying. Right?
Yes, yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
So, so my first year ever, I was actually like a recruiting booth set up at Snow College, Krispy Kreme donuts, and some poor college student walking by, right? They pull me over there, give me a flyer, and say, hey, tonight we're gonna have a recruiting meeting at Fat Jack's Pizza.
Okay.
And so I'm like, I got a donut and I get free pizza for coming over. Cool, I'll come.
This is the
check
best
it out.
company ever. Yeah.
Yep. Show up there at 7 p.m. And the guys show up in their Hummer, leather jackets,
Totally
looking the part. And next thing you know, I'm out in Chicago getting after it. And that was actually with Pinnacle, so I was a different, a competitor. That summer, we already talked about how, it was Pinnacle, and then it turned into Alarmex, then into Safe Home, changed the brand 3 times, changed the panel from Honeywell to a Simon, changed activation fees, point systems. It was a lot to keep up with.
chaos.
Just came back from that though, and then I was down there, and Todd Peterson was down there recruiting in person. Met him, super impressed, just very genuine, authentic, and we didn't have time to sit down and talk too much though. So he actually drove down. It was 3 days later. Drove all the way back down. We went to a little Mexican restaurant. Remember this, Mexican burrito that I actually was talking the whole time, so I didn't really even finish my meal, and talking with him and super impressed with him, and he actually offered me a $3,000 signing bonus, which for me, I was like, dude, I haven't even done anything yet for your company to create value for you. You're going to invest $3,000 in me as a college student, and that blew my mind.
Yeah.
At the time, right? So anyway, made the jump over to Vivint, and then that's where. So I guess it was 16 years with Vivint from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And talk a little bit about, like we said at the beginning, CEO of fund management of Axia Partners after 17 years in door-to-door. So there's been this transition, but maybe talk about when you first started doing real estate while you were still in door-to-door, and then scaling up the real estate stuff kind of in the background.
Yep. So I'm 30 years old. I've been talking a lot about wanting, to have financial freedom, which I would define as having enough reoccurring passive income to cover your cost of living.
Yeah.
Right. And so I've been talking about that for a long time, and I'd bought a few properties, a few fourplexes and whatnot, but I realized, hey, there's a big difference between wanting something and being committed to it. And so I sat down. I was 30 years old at that time, and I took out a spreadsheet and I just reverse engineered exactly how many rental properties I would need to create that financial freedom. So it's a super simple equation I want to share with you guys. So you take out a spreadsheet, and by the way, if you actually want to download this as a template, it's on my website. It's just daveallred.com. Under the resources page, you can actually download this, as well as my lifestyle design and a few other resources.
Yep.
But yeah, it's really simple. So you write down what's your cost of living, and that includes everything: your insurance, car, gas, lease payments, food, all of it. So let's say it was $200,000. The next line item is, well, how much passive income do I have right now? Let's say I have 50 grand from whatever. So then the next line item is, what's the difference? So in that situation, it'd be a $150,000 gap. The next line item is, how many years am I willing to commit to achieving financial freedom? For me, it was 10 years. I was 30 years old at the time.
Yep.
And so then you just subtract that number by the number of years. So in that situation, it'd be $15,000 of new passive income that I needed per year in order to have true financial freedom.
Yep.
And dude, I got fired up about that, man. Like that became, so then I figured I need 40 rental properties to be able to achieve that, right?
Yeah, because you can go further from that, right? The passive income, then you get what return do you think you're going to get on your investments, and then you get how much principal do you need to put in investments to have all that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep, you got it. But a spreadsheet was really important for me. And they say that, writing it down, a goal that's written down is 42% more likely to be hit.
Okay.
And I just feel like, for me at least, it was writing it down, it really motivated me because I was able to see the incremental improvements along the way, as well as hold myself accountable to what I'd committed to. So so the mantra became 40 by 40. 40 doors by age 40. Changed all my passwords to 40 by 40, and it just became hyper laser focused on that. Every Sunday I'd sit down, I'd measure how I'm doing, what I needed to make, whatnot, right? And so I hit that goal when I was 36. And at that point, that's actually when I retired from door-to-door sales and went full-time into it. Reset that goal to ownership in 1,000 rental properties by age 40. And spent the next few years committed to that and hit that goal when I was 40, and then built it from there. And that's actually, and at that point, I launched Axia Partners.
Yep.
But backing up a little bit, I just want to share this because to me, like the earning opportunity with door sales is incredible. It really is, especially at the age group of most employees. But what I've seen a lot in my leadership career was when guys start making six figures, they actually get very complacent because it's more than they need. It's more than they maybe had even expected to make.
Yeah.
And so one of the biggest challenges was, how do I keep these guys fired up and motivated to produce? And what I've learned is when I have that clear blueprint of exactly what I'm fighting for, right? Financial freedom, time freedom, my family, lifestyle freedom, traveling the world, going to Mount Everest a few years ago, like those kind of things really fire me up. So I make this whole list of all these, what I need to make, financial freedom, make it very specific in a system. And then, you reverse, I love the word reverse engineer.
Yes.
So you set those big goals, you reverse engineer it into more digestible goals and habits. And by the way, motivation to me is fickle. I'm not a big fan of motivation.
Yeah.
To me, it's all about habits. Habits is what actually changes and makes change long term. Motivation is just an emotion.
Yep.
Okay. And so anyway, so you create that whole system around it, and then that's where things get fun, man, because then you make a nice monthly check or a year-end commission check, and it's just plugging it into the system. Okay, cool, I made whatever, boom, plugging into this, I'm that much closer to my target. And it becomes almost like a game. It's gamifying it to where you immediately see that progress. And for me, and for a lot of the guys I've shared this system with, indoor sales, it's been a game changer. So I just challenge, I'm a very technical guy in spreadsheets and whatnot, but I would just challenge you to get really clear on what your end goal is. Like, what are you really fighting for? And the more clarity you have around what your end goal is, everything else becomes so much more easy because you're operating with purpose.
Well, it should, right? And I just want to say, this is something I work with my guys on a lot, is because the problem I have is like, on a micro scale, like long goals and short goals. I have guys, our big thing we do is we do a month goal for revenue, okay? And that one, You kind of get inspiration for it. You honestly just think what you want to do. You kind of pull it out of thin air, and that's fine. But then what they do is they pull their daily goals out of thin air too. And my argument is I say, hey, the only goal you should actually pull out of thin air is the longest one. The short ones are all just done by ratio of the longest one. You get what I'm saying? Like if you want to have, whatever you said, 40 doors by 40. Your goal for this year isn't going to be 13 doors. It's going to be some percentage, however many years you have till 40, blah, 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 blah. You get what I'm saying? So it's like you can do all the rest by ratio. The only one you actually have to just kind of get inspired and pull out of the air is the longest one.
I would add on two things there.
Yeah.
One is I love the expression that the language of business is math.
Yes.
And even more so in real estate. But everything comes down to numbers. I mean, it's you're knocking, number of doors knocked. It's your closing ratio. It's how many houses you get into. It's all math. And
yes.
So a lot of times, especially young guys, like they don't. It's not a normal way to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But try to get really into the numbers.
Yeah.
Because the data never lies. The second thing I just add on there, man, is like talking about 40 years old. That's cool, but I just got to mention this real fast. Like for me, what I've probably the best ROI or return on investment that I've gotten on any of my time in my life has been the time that I've really spent on thinking about the end goal of my life. Like when Dave Allred is on his deathbed at 120, that's my goal, 120 years old. Don't laugh, bro. It's anyway. Well,
you're in good shape. I believe in you.
We did a whole podcast on biohacking, stem cells,
okay.
Peptides, nutrition. I'm like cold plunges.
I need to get more involved with that.
Hot therapy. Like we're like super deep into it right now. Like 2 years into it. It's really fascinating. But
love it.
Anyway, you imagine on your deathbed, looking back at your life, and you think about how do you live your life with no regrets.
Mm-hmm.
And I put a lot of thought into that, man. A fun practice is actually to write your own eulogy, which is an interesting practice because it makes you think about what you want your friends, family, your neighbors to say about your legacy and your impact on this earth. Mm-hmm. And so I wrote my whole eulogy, and then again you reverse engineer it. Okay, so if I want to do this and live with purpose and impact and great family culture and success and money and whatever else, travel, what do I need to do in my life to reverse engineer that to where I can live life with no regrets?
Yep.
And I mentioned lifestyle design earlier, and by the way, you can download that for free as well on my website. But I wrote out the 10 areas of my life I want to be great at, right, with no regrets. And so it's my purpose statement. It's my family, my health, my business, my experiences, spiritual relationships, etc. Mm-hmm. But it's all written out very, very clearly. And I know a lot of guys listen, I'm like, dude, that's a lot. Like that sounds like, and it is, frankly speaking. But like I said, that's the best in my experience. In my belief is that is the best time I've ever spent in my life, is really figuring out at the end of my life, how am I going to feel that I've lived my life mm-hmm. to my potential.
That's awesome. So,
but write it down, because otherwise, it's like it's an idea, we forget about it.
Yeah.
It went on. So I just challenge you guys to write down. And again, it's not, when I wrote that down the first time, man, when I was 20 years ago, it's very different today. So it's a living document that evolves, as I learn and I grow.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So a couple kind of maybe nitty gritty real estate questions, but for D2D people, here's one that I would love to get your take on. Okay. I think if you've, say you've read like even a single real estate book, right? You've probably heard somebody advocate the whole, like, you're a young kid, get into a little duplex that you can rent a side of, or a house that you can rent the basement of. Basically, this whole little, like, you're a broke kid, now you're going to house hack to get in the game thing, okay? And that's great. I'm not against it. I agree with that. But let's say you're 27, you already have a wife and kids, and you make $400,000, and you're just a little past maybe house hacking a $300,000 condo, but you do need to get started. What would you do if you're this person?
Easy answer. There's two answers.
Okay.
So two options to choose from.
Yeah.
Okay. Option one, buy a fourplex.
Okay.
That's what I did. So
Fourplexes.
yeah, I bought, I think it was 28 fourplexes between Utah, Idaho, Arizona, Nevada.
28 of them.
Yeah.
Holy mackerel.
You
Okay.
know, one or two, three at a time
Yeah,
along
yeah.
the way. And it's actually a really interesting story how that happened with 1031 exchanges, and it's actually, if we had time, we could dive into that. But I love the fourplex model because mainly it's a residential loan, because it's actually called resident. Anything 4 doors or less is residential multifamily. 5 doors and above is commercial real estate.
Gotcha.
And so you get better financing on that one, but you have 4 streams of income coming in, right? So you buy a single. By the way, I'll never buy a single family home. I have before, but the more I've learned about real estate, there's just no economy of scale with it.
Right.
And that's a whole other, that's a big tangent there too. But because a lot of you guys want to go single family homes. If somebody asked me, you know, what would I do differently, I would say I wouldn't have started off buying townhomes at all or single family homes. And you gone straight to multifamily out the gate. That's my best advice, and it still plays today.
Because it scales with property managers and that type of thing?
Well, real quick, because there's 5 ways to make money in real estate.
Okay.
Just follow me real quick.
Yep.
Number 1 is cash flow, my favorite. Number 2 is appreciation, natural market appreciation.
Yeah.
Number 3 is depreciation, all the tax benefits, which are massive. Number 4 is principal reductions. Every month, the tenants are paying rent. It pays down your mortgage, right, which creates real equity and wealth.
Yep.
Number 5 is leverage, the fact that you can put $1 in and borrow $3 from the bank.
Yep.
So considering that those are the 5 ways we make money in real estate, if I have a single family home that's, you know, call it $500,000, or a fourplex that let's say it's $2 million, right? 'Cause there's 4 units. All 5 of those are better on the fourplex. Cash flow, better. Four tenants paying rent. Appreciation, instead of, you know, appreciating, say the market's appreciating 5% on a $500,000 asset versus $2 million, I'm getting 4 times more natural market appreciation with doing nothing, just be completely passive, right? Depreciation tax benefits, same thing, 4 times more tax benefits on that one. My principal pay down every month on the mortgage, same thing, 4 times more wealth creation on the fourplex. Then the leverage is kind of the same, though. It's just, 3, whatever that leverage ratio is.
Yep, bigger.
So you're literally at least 4 of those 5 drivers are better the larger that you go. And so anyway, that's a simple answer there. But going back to your question, so fourplexes, love that model. It's pretty simple to get into, and I would even say that the number 1 best house hack that you could possibly do is actually move into one of those units of the fourplex. That we get even better financing. If it's your first time buying a home, you can get an FHA loan, only have to put down 3 to 5%. So you can get maximum leverage on that. But the beautiful thing is now you don't pay for property management because you're living on site, so you're saving 7 to 10% right there as well. You get better financing. You've got tenants coming in, and best case scenario is this fourplex actually is like kind of run down. You live in one unit, you fix it up. Once you get a vacancy, you move into that unit, fix it up. You do that to all 4 units. And then a beautiful thing that a lot of people don't know about is in America, the housing code, tax code allows you, if you live in a home as a primary home for 2 years, once you sell that home, you have 0 taxable. It's not taxable, the gains.
Yeah.
Over that 2-year period.
They treat
long
it as
you
your
lived in
residence
it.
instead of an investment.
That's right.
Yeah.
Even though it was a rental property, 3 units were rented out, it still qualifies under that same IRS code. And so you could literally get all the appreciation naturally, plus all the sweat equity you put into it, all tax-free.
Yep.
So I think that's a great way of approaching it. The second option is, I'm maybe a little biased here, but would be investing in a fund like Axia Partners.
Yep.
Right? Because like you're a partner with us in multiple different funds, which by the way, appreciate that, 7 figures plus.
Absolutely.
And so the beautiful thing on that is that you're completely passive, which especially for sales leaders and high income earners, a lot of times you don't want it. A really important decision out the gate is, do I want to be passive or do I want to be active in my investment? Most guys want passive, end up being a lot more active than they want to be.
Yeah.
Right? And so with investing in a fund like Axia, it's completely passive. You don't have to personally guarantee anything. You don't have to do any of your due diligence. You don't have to manage anything. You don't have to operate anything. Literally, it's just, basically getting a K1 every year to give your CPA. That's literally the only thing that you have to do as a partner with us, right?
Agreed.
And so it's a great way to be able to get exposure and to learn a lot in the process, but work with experienced operators that know how to navigate, choppy waters. And frankly speaking, right now in the housing, in the United States, there's a lot of choppy waters.
Yep.
And so I think right now I would be cautious jumping into your first deal without having a mentor or a coach or somebody in your life that's actually done it before, that can help you just make sure you avoid some landmines and know what you're doing. Because a lot of times in real estate, you can do everything just right, but it's that one thing you miss in your due diligence or in the process that comes back and gets you.
The active versus passive drum is one that I'll beat till I die. All of my senior guys who work with me who, have enough money that we talk about investing could vouch for this. I will always tell these guys, like, dude, you make, 3, 4, 5, 700 G's, $1 million, whatever. The opportunity cost of taking you off the doors or out of a meeting to play landlord and save a few $100 versus whether it's being in a fund or just doing something at scale where like a property manager makes sense, the opportunity cost doesn't make sense. I'm always
I 100% agree with
I'm
you
always
on that.
trying to tell these guys, like, please do not try to play landlord for 2 little properties and be fixing a toilet when you needed to be at a meeting. Just hire that out. Your 16% is acceptable.
Yeah.
You didn't need 18 on this one.
I
Just work your
I
job.
believe I 100% agree with that, man.
Yeah.
I see it all the time, and frankly, that's out of our 400 investors, about half of them are actually from door sales owners, executives, high income earners, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, but I also I would add one caveat there where, it's nice to be able to learn a little bit too in the process because, if you don't just like throw your money into a deal and then like, I in my opinion, it's best to be able to do both where you're passive, but you can still get some education from it to be able to become a little more sophisticated investor. And on that note, when I launched Axia Partners, that was really important to us. And so even on our webpage, the number one thing it says when you log in there, it says experiential investing.
Mm-hmm.
I need to trademark it. I love this. So it's experiential investing. And what is it? It's a commitment to not just getting a good ROI, return on investment, but it's also an ROE, a return on education and experience. And so like every month we do a webinar. We have top guys in the industry coming on, just teaching, not pitching anything, just teaching how it is we do what we do. Every time we close on a deal, we do an experiential webinar. In fact, we have one on Thursday to go over our latest multifamily asset out in Oklahoma. And we show our investors exactly how we found the deal, how we're going to manage it, how we source the debt, our business plan, full transparency. Now, again, some guys, like, they just want to make money and they don't jump on those calls. But about half the guys really love the fact that we can actually, with full transparency, teach and educate how it is that we do what we do. So anyway, that's not necessarily a plug for Axia, but just to me, that's a really important aspect of, when I want to invest with somebody. Right now, where I'm at in my life, it's either I want a great return on investment, I want good tax benefits, and I want to learn from it, but I also want to have proximity to people that are like best in class.
Yeah.
And I believe that in life, proximity is power. And if you can get around people that are doing where you want to get to, it is one of the most amazing shortcuts to success in life, in all aspects of life, right? Like, Todd Peterson, he used to always say, hey, when you jump in a new venture, a new vertical, what you really want to do is you want to associate around the top 1% to 2% of people in that space. It's like when I started syndicating money for big apartment complexes across the country, that's what I did. I found the number one syndicator for multifamily in the country. I was able to build a relationship there with him, and we ended up doing a couple of deals together. And it was a great launch pad for me to be able to have the credibility and the success of working with that individual to then go and build my own organization.
Right. Well, any kind of last parting advice? It could be door to door, it could be investing. I know we kind of went deep on lifestyle designer there, which is your thing.
How many is too many?
Go ham.
I'll go a few.
Yeah.
First one I'd share is my all-time favorite quote in leadership is Zig Ziglar.
Okay.
You can have everything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. I feel like that's a great way to operate in business and just in life in general. The second thing I would say is real estate. 90% of millionaires in America are made through real estate, and I love seeing guys when they're younger and they're making good money to be able to get into real estate. And I'm glad that I learned that a long time ago. I wish I would have gone even deeper into real estate instead of doing everything else, stock market, crypto, and whatnot. Because, but it's not a quick get rich quick thing, but to me it's true wealth, because that passive income and knowing it's secured by a hard asset, like that's what creates that peace of mind, like that really feeling wealthy is when you know it's not going anywhere, right? The third thing I would just say is realize that taxes are the largest transfer of wealth in our lives. It's not about what you make, it's about what you keep.
Yep.
Again, that's why I love real estate. There's so many amazing tax benefits behind it as well, as you know. The fourth thing I would say is experiences are the new economy. I really believe that, money follows experiences more so than it used to. Millennials, baby boomers, whoever it is, they want experiences, right? And so it's like for Axia, it's experiential investing, right? With Topgolf, that's very experiential. The restaurants and food and beverage that we've both invested in, very experiential.
Yep.
Everything I'm doing in my life right now is about experiences. Not everything, but it's a real primary focus for me.
Yeah.
And so whether you're selling solar or security or pest or whatever, windows, try to make it an experience for your client, and it's a unique value proposition that will help separate you, and you'll create raving fans and more referrals as well, in my opinion.
Love that.
So number 5 would just be, I'll wrap it up with, really take it serious to embrace learning leadership. I think leadership is such an incredible skill set, and my experience was there's no better opportunity than what you guys are doing to learn the real time how to be a great leader, right? And that leadership correlates to how you do your business, how you run your family, all aspects of your life. And so just don't take lightly the opportunity to be a leader. And if you're a first-year sales rep listening to this, again, just that story I shared with you guys, like for me, the tipping point was when I saw the leadership opportunity of where that could go in the future. So I'll wrap it up with that.
Love it, man. So if our followers and our listeners want to, be able to follow along with you, where can they find you?
My website, daveallred.com. Pretty active on all the socials. Dave Allred, Allred. Axia Partners website. Besides that, just feel free to reach out. Anybody have any questions on real estate, I'll do my best to get back to them, or my assistant will. Feel free to jump on my website and download those resources. That's valuable with lifestyle design and the financial freedom equation as well. So
Sweet. Thanks for coming, man.
thanks, Levi. Appreciate you, man.
Yep.